Next up, we're gonna have Tamara come out, and she's gonna talk about building the new establishment, funding women's entrepreneurships with the power of NFTs. So round of applause for Tamara.
Welcome, everybody. It's a pleasure to see you all here. My name is Melissa Romero. I'm the co-founder of Game Changers.
My name is Tamara. I'm also the other co-founder of the Game Changers.
And we're here today to share a little bit more about how we're trying to equalize the playing level field for women founders, leveraging the power of Web3. So I'm going to be asking you some questions today, Tammy, because you're the brain mom of Game Changers, but also of these change that we're trying to inspire. So, you have been an investor for the longest time. What have you seen that has triggered you to think about equalizing the playing level field?
Yes, well, as a venture capital investor, you see a lot of startups every day. And in a typical year, I see about 400 proposals that have been filtered. So that means 400 quality proposals. And in a typical year, when I started investing in venture, we would see only about 5%, so about 20 proposals coming from women. So when you run the numbers of the VC funnel, you realize that out of 5%, like our success rate is about 1%. So out of 100 proposals, you would invest in one.
Wow.
So if you only see 20 proposals in any given year, the chance of you investing in that year in a woman is very slim. So I realized we needed to diversify the ecosystem. And I try to do this in Web 2 by speaking to women, talking about entrepreneurship, trying to educate them, but also speaking to investors and trying to educate investors. And we set up this company called #Fundright, where we educated investors and that were committed to diversity. And there, we reached a lot of awareness, but during COVID, the numbers actually went down. So we went from 2% funding in women entrepreneurs back to 1%.
Wow, so we're talking about, out of all the population of women founders, that it's close to 50% in tech, maybe a little bit lower. I think the statistic is about 40%. You're telling me that all the money that exists out there, from all that money, only 2% are going into women founders.
Correct. And you know, you could argue maybe men perform better, but Mass Challenge and Boston Consulting Group have done a research where they show that women-led startups get 2x more money than the men-led startups in that research. So also from a return on investment perspective, it doesn't really make sense.
Right. I also understand that women get more done with the limited capital that they have. I guess it's part of how we are 70% of the population also administering our daily lives, the household, etc. Right?
Correct. Women are much more careful when they're spending the investors' money. They're about 35% more capital effective, as we like to call it. So they get 35% more done with the same dollar than men-led teams do.
Right. So basically, it seems that there is no really rational explanation why. Like, I know that statistically speaking, there is about 17% of women graduating from STEM careers. So we're talking specifically about tech entrepreneurs. Maybe statistically speaking, you would fall a little bit under, but still, it's quite shocking numbers. So you have tried with Fundright. I understand that you launched that with the Prince of the Netherlands, Constantine. So what better influencer in the country where we're based than that? So.
Yeah, absolutely. We had the best co-founders. We launched this with about 8 really prominent VC funds. We had great support from Prince Constantine, but also other very influential people. And people were on board with the program. It just comes down to it. What I realized is that when you're in a stressful situation like COVID was, you fall back to what you know. You fall back to what you consider success, which is your own affinity bias, and it's people that look like you.
Right.
And this is exactly the reason why I thought when NFTs came, this might be the way to break through that. Because to break through this affinity bias, we need to diversify the affinity bias.
Right. I think it's maybe good to explain that there is a lot of research done by VMware Women's Research Institute in Stanford, together with Lenin, showing the top 6 biases that are holding women back, and definitely affinity bias is one of the strongest one, and it's as we understand it as it is. So affinity bias means that we tend to gravitate towards people like us. So if the majority is a homogeneous group and those people gravitate towards people like them, yeah, it's not that we wake up in the morning and say, hey, I feel like discriminating against women. It's simply unconscious, and being aware of it is not enough. So I think what you're trying to say as well is, as long as we put the money in the hands of people that are not part of the homogeneous majoritarian group, their affinity unconscious bias hopefully will help to put that money also in the hands of people like them that they tend to gravitate towards.
Absolutely. So it's a fact of life, affinity bias. Every one of us has it. I have it, you have it, everyone has it. But the investor community is just, as we know, predominantly male, of a specific background, of a specific education, and they tend to select people that look like them, but 20 years younger.
Yes.
So if we need to add other type of investors to invest more in marginalized groups, it's not only women, but also other marginalized groups in general.
Absolutely. So this is all nice, but this has been your intent in Web 2. So what does this have to do with NFT, NFT.NYC, Web 3? Can you tell me a little bit more, or tell us a little bit more about what does this have to do with Web 3? When did you get into the rabbit hole, and why, and what is that we're trying to build?
Sure. So I tried to do this in Web 2. I went to a couple of pension funds, and I wanted to set up a fund of funds to support emerging managers. You know, to diversify the investor pool, we need to support emerging managers, which are people of color, people with different cultural backgrounds, women. But emerging managers have such a hard time fundraising.
Right.
If it's hard for women entrepreneurs to fundraise, it's 10 times harder for women fund managers to fundraise.
Yeah,
their
they need to be fundraising from LPs, so big checks, right?
Right.
That's even more money
exactly,
needed.
Yeah. So I thought, you know, let's set up a fund of funds that can be the first check writer. That
Right.
can be the thing where the emerging manager goes to with their good plan, with their solid backing, with great governance and compliance and everything that a good fund manager needs, and gets that first check that everyone is asking about. And I went to a couple of pension funds. My idea was to get 10 pension funds to invest 100 million tickets, which for large pension funds that have 50 to 200 billion assets under management is really nothing, and set up a diversity fund of funds. And so first ticket is only 5 million. You know, we could get really a long way with 10 tickets of 100. But talking to the pension funds, they told me, like, if we go back to our LPs, it will take us 3-4 years to set this up for you. And I realized that, you know, I'm not doing it for me, I'm doing it for the broader public. It's just too much effort and too much time of my life. So at that moment, I put it in the fridge.
And we need to go faster, right?
And we
wanna
absolutely
drive,
need to go faster.
Change. Okay, so then you got into the rabbit hole, and did you notice that Web3 is an opportunity to fundraise all that kind of money?
Well, I thought Web3 is definitely an opportunity to decentralize where the decision-making power comes from. And when NFTs started coming up, I realized also this is a great tool for a lot of people to understand what is going on in investments and making it much more easy to comprehend what you're actually doing. So the idea was to set up an NFT collection where we're featuring women to use and amplify their stories, successful women entrepreneurs, and sell that collection, and through that effort, fund a little part of the fund of funds that will then invest back into emerging fund managers.
Yeah, exactly, because I think that's something that we have also discussed in the past, is that there is several problems that we're trying to tackle to drive this change and to support more women, right? It doesn't have to do only with the money, which is great to have access to capital. That's something that needs to happen, and that we're trying to build with game changers, right? But at the same time, there is also 2 more things. With the money alone, you can maybe go far, but maybe not that fast if you don't have the right networks. So it also has to do with having access to networks And you're touching upon something very important, which is amplifying the stories of these amazing founders as role models, because we also see that we have a responsibility with the generations behind us, or after us, I have to say, to show our girls and young women that if somebody else can make it, you can also give it a try. Because that is also the problem very often, that how can, and this goes beyond gender. I always like to say this, where we live in the Netherlands, would a young boy of African descent, that it's 10% of the population in the Netherlands, believe in his mind that he can become a prime minister in that country? Right now, I don't think so, because there are no role models. So with Game Changers, the art that we're trying to build is basically, it's not only art, is real faces of real people. So our first drop is an ode to the women in Web3. We thought it was important to start with a first drop that amplifies the voices of the women in this space. There are 50, a little bit more than 50, that are going to be portrayed, serving as role models. Some of them are very prominent. We will not be spilling the beans yet, but we have very prominent people that many of you might have heard of. But we also have up-and-coming, emerging game changers, really, people that are changing the game in this. So just to summarize, a collection of role models, real life people that can show others that it can be done, where 75% of the proceeds will go into funding a fund that is going to be only benefiting women founders or people identifying as a woman. And then beyond that, can you tell us a little bit more about the access to networks? So what is the kind of NFT holders that we're going to have?
So you see, we are now like 1.5 years into the whole NFT development, which is not a lot of time, but if you see the speed with which this industry is developing, I don't think we've seen it before. So a lot of things happen within 1 month, within 2 weeks. So I think, what we learned is that we need to build intentional communities. And that is why NFTs for us, for this project, is so crucial. With the intentional community, we can add people that are launching customers for women founders, that are mentors, sponsors, maybe co-founders, developers, and create a community, a network that will give that access to the women founders of tomorrow. And that is why I love using NFTs.
Right. So I think you're touching upon a point, because now that the industry is getting into a more level of maturity, how special it is to, we are not interested in just people just trading or flipping an NFT, etc. Ideally, the people that hold the NFT is somebody that can see themselves as one of the pieces that is going to help support those next generation of women founders be successful. And they can also get rewarded by the value and everything that comes into the NFT by being that support system for the founders.
Correct. And as you know, we will have 2 tokens. One of the membership token, but the other one is quite interesting. It's going to be investment club token. Because one of the other things that I truly believe in is that all of us out there can be investors. It's just that the definitions are scary. And we need to bridge that gap, and this is a great way where we can build these programs to teach people on how to individually invest $500,000, $5,000, euros, and create wealth and
even
independence for
the
yourself.
other token, right? The membership token that is the equivalent to $250. Like, this is what Web3 makes possible. We can, with $250, start generating generational wealth, which before, and in your world in VC, if you don't have 1 million to spare and play around, you cannot be a VC partner in a fund, and that's for smaller funds, I guess. So yeah, what we, let's say the call to action or the call and the invitation for everybody is, this is gonna be, it's a slow process. We have amazing people being featured. Next drop is going to be an ode to Asian entrepreneurs, and the next one, climate and sustainability. So if you know amazing women changing the game, send them our way. Stay tuned for what's coming. Yeah, and if adoption is going to be a big part of that as well, because people that are experts in finance, go-to-market, marketing, creators, etc. They are not all in this room. There is a lot of people with great talents that we can use that are not crypto savvy yet. So also join us on this ride, and thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.